Okay, now here's part 2 of the Chapter 11 video lecture. Sorry about that interruption earlier. Part 2. The classical orchestra is continuing, and we're going to be talking about Stamitz and the Mannheim School is what it's referred to as. At this location in Germany under the direction of Stamitz, the orchestra really developed to what we see today. We see today first violin played by 20 violins, split in half, to first violin, second violin, a viola section, a cello section, a bass section, and then a section of winds, woodwinds, and brass instruments, plus percussion in the back, timpani. And that setting and that orchestra group became the standard for the next 300 years, and here we are today. And very important. It can't be dismissed how important that is. The instruments, however, only were in that group like that because of technology, and realize also that this was the Industrial Revolution. And great strides were being made in materials and in the technology at the time to develop instruments to be able to do the things that composers want them to do. And it needs to be understood that prior to the classical era, such things as trumpets and clarinets and flutes and oboes and bassoons and trombones that we know today did not exist. They were there in limited form. I'll give you an idea of what I'm talking about. This is a modern trumpet. In the Baroque era, in Bach's era, in the Baroque time and earlier time, a trumpet was essentially a bugle. And a trumpet player could only play certain notes because there were no valves. Okay, so it was just a bugle, there were no valves to press, and so because of that, a trumpet player could only do this. And if they worked harder, they could play higher notes, but that was it. So if you wanted to do something on trumpet, sounds like a bugle call. It's essentially what it was. If the composer wanted the trumpet to do something else, the trumpet player had to take out a piece of tubing, take this all the way out, put in a longer one or a shorter one to be able to play different notes. Let's get that back in there. Today, instead of doing that, the trumpet has all the different tubing already attached to it, and all you have to do is close a valve which opens up this tubing down here, which makes the trumpet longer and allows me to play different notes. But that's the technology that was available then in the classical period. Clarinets were invented during that time. Flutes were developed to the point where they could play in tune. They could play in tune. I know that sounds like a stretch, but they can play in tune. And so other instruments were developed. And they could play equally with the violin family instruments. And so the orchestra developed into what it is today because of the work of Stamitz. Okay, let's move ahead to Mr. Mozart here. If there is a composer that is characteristic of the classical era, it is Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Please pronounce his name correctly, Mozart. I had a college professor, a philosophy professor, who for some reason, I don't know why he mentioned it, but he did mention Mozart's name, but he kept saying Mozart. Okay, Mozart. Please be sure to pronounce it correctly. Let me give you a couple other pronunciations that might help out. Some of his famous pieces of music are still pronounced in the German or still pronounced in the Italian when they were written. Le Nozze di Figaro is The Marriage of Figaro, so there's one pronunciation. Another is Det Zauberflöte, which is German for the magic flute. So just thought that would help you out. On page 122. Duties of the conductor. A couple of questions about this on the multiple choice quiz, so let me just go to it. Baton. This is the baton that I use to communicate with musicians in my group, and all conductors do this. Essentially what this does is it communicates, it's a long stick, and it communicates to the folks when to start the music. Not only does it tell them when to start it, when I bounce it here, they're going to either release their bow or release their tongue, ta, to play through their instrument. I'm indicating at the same time I do this upstroke, I'm indicating the speed, and if I do it slow like that, that's the speed I want. Now the musicians already know how many beats are in each measure. They know if it's in duple time or triple time or quadruple time. So I don't really need to conduct that, but because of that they know the speed of what I want to do. Also, I'm demonstrating to them while I'm conducting, and if you watch conductors live or on television, you see them flailing around. You're wondering what it is they're doing. Why are they dancing to the music? They're helping create the music by doing a number of things. They're indicating to their players a pattern of how many beats are in each measure. Okay? Now, at a certain level, that particular pattern is not important to musicians. They don't need to know what beat they're on. Okay? But it's a pattern that tells the players when to get louder. If I get softer, I'm going to indicate a slower movement, or not slower, a smaller movement of my stick. If I want it louder, it's a bigger movement of my stick. Okay, but I'm not, and if I want to speed up the music, which, you know, it indicates that I should on the music in front of me, the score, then I'll speed up my stick. If it should slow down, which happens in music, it will slow down. If I want it to stop and hold a note, I'll take my other hand and I'll do this. Ask the players to stop. And when I want them to start again, I'll do this. Okay, so I'm conducting a lot. Phrasing. When it comes to phrasing, I'm conducting phrasing. I'm telling the players when to either breathe if it's a wind instrument or to stop the bow movement and start again. So let's take something simple. So that breath right there was indicated by this movement of my hands. I'll get over here so you can see what I'm doing. Movement of my hands and then back in. And I'm conducting the next phrase. And so that's what I'm doing with the movements. The other thing I'm doing, which is really important, is I'm indicating articulation. In other words, how short I want the notes to be, how long I want the notes to be, how accented I want the notes to be. Certain notes, I want them to be accented more than others, whether the score tells me to or not. That's my own interpretation as a conductor. I can do that. So if I want to do that, I can do, boom, I want that to be a tongued hard or bowed hard, or I want it to be bowed short or tongued short, 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 short. So that's what I'm doing as a conductor. I'm communicating all that stuff to the players. Now, prior to a performance, we've talked about all those things. The players have written things in. We have a plan of how that's all going to work. But sometimes in a performance, things change, and the conductor may want to do something slightly different. Hold a note longer than was practiced in rehearsal, or to play something louder than was practiced in the rehearsal. You're going to be listening to Symphony number 40. I'm going to be doing a listening an audio presentation on Symphony number 40 here, Mozart's first movement from that symphony. There are 4 movements in that symphony. This is the sonata allegro form. You will clearly hear the sections and the phrasing, the themes in this symphony, and that should be really nice. So stay tuned for that.